Here's something surprising. Apple's next budget iPhone might be one of the laziest upgrades the company has ever made. According to recent leaks, the iPhone 18e could arrive with almost no meaningful changes compared to the previous model, and oddly enough, that might actually be exactly what Apple wants. Before we jump in, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It really helps me keep bringing you more tech breakdowns like this one. To understand why, you have to look at where this phone sits in Apple's lineup. The E series is basically the spiritual successor to the old iPhone SE, the entry point for people who want the newest iPhone but don't want to spend flagship money. While companies like Samsung offer a whole range of budget and mid-range phones, Apple keeps things simple. If you want a cheaper new iPhone, the E series is basically the only door you can walk through. And that's why the iPhone 18e matters more than it might seem. Leaks suggest the phone is already finalized, even though it likely won't launch until early 2027. It's expected to arrive alongside the standard iPhone 18 models and possibly a second-generation iPhone Air. Meanwhile, Apple's premium lineup, including the Pro models and the rumored foldable iPhone, will probably launch months earlier, in September 2026. But here's the catch. The iPhone 18e reportedly won't change much in terms of design or hardware. Aside from a newer chip, most things could stay exactly the same as the previous generation. At first glance, that sounds disappointing, but the reason becomes clearer when you look at the phone before it, the iPhone 17e. The iPhone 17e already delivered a surprisingly big upgrade over the 16e. Apple gave it a faster A19 chip, stronger ceramic shield display protection, MagSafe support, and 15-watt wireless charging. It also introduced Apple's new C1X connectivity chip and doubled the starting storage without raising the price. Even the higher capacity 512GB model became more affordable. That's actually a lot of improvements for what's supposed to be Apple's cheapest iPhone. At the same time, some things stayed exactly the same. The display remained a 6.1-inch OLED panel, the camera hardware didn't change, and the battery size stayed roughly identical. And surprisingly, that formula seems to be working. Recent market research showed that the iPhone 16e made up about 9% of all iPhone sales in the United States during 2025. That's slightly better than the iPhone SE from 2022, which held around 8% of sales when it launched. Even more interesting, the iPhone 13 mini, another attempt at a smaller, affordable iPhone, accounted for only about 1% of shipments by 2023. So Apple might have finally found the sweet spot for its entry-level phone: modern design, reasonable performance, and just enough features to feel like a real iPhone without stepping on the toes of the expensive models. That also explains why the iPhone 18e might not change much. From Apple's perspective, the formula already works. Still, there are a few things people would love to see improved. The biggest request is probably the display refresh rate. Even in 2026, Apple still uses a 60Hz screen on its cheaper phones. Meanwhile, many Android phones, even budget ones, offer 120Hz displays that look much smoother when scrolling or gaming. So if Apple really wanted to make the 18e feel modern, upgrading the screen to 120Hz would be an easy win. Another thing that should probably stay the same is the size. The current 6.1-inch display hits a sweet spot for people who prefer compact phones. Not everyone wants a massive screen, and a smaller, simpler iPhone still has a loyal fanbase. Of course, expecting bigger changes, like removing the notch or adding a second rear camera, is probably unrealistic. This is Apple's cheapest iPhone after all, and the company tends to keep those premium features reserved for the Pro models. Battery improvements would also be welcome. Smartphone makers are pushing huge battery numbers lately, sometimes even approaching 10,000 milliamp hours in experimental devices. Apple usually doesn't chase those extremes, but even a modest boost would make a difference. But here's the bigger picture. Even if the iPhone 18e ends up being a modest or even boring upgrade, Apple might not really care. The company's real focus is clearly shifting towards its high-end devices, the Pro models, and especially the long-rumored foldable iPhone. Those are the products that grab headlines, innovate new areas, and generate the biggest profits. The E-Series has a much simpler job. It just needs to exist as the affordable gateway into the Apple ecosystem. And if the current formula keeps selling well, Apple may feel no pressure to change it at all.
In other words, the iPhone 18e might do the absolute minimum, but for Apple, that might be exactly the point. What's your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments section. See you in the next video. Take care.